went live, but it looks like there we go. Okay. Always a little something fun to start the Friday, right? All right, I'm just going to make sure that we are streaming, and I'm going to bring up this feed so that I can take any questions that you may have as we go along. Okay. So, hi, my name is Sandy Roberts. I am the Makerspace Coordinator for the Warren County Library System, and this is Friday S.T.E.A.M. I'm so glad that you're able to join us. We are going to explore science, technology, engineering, art, and math each week at 3 p.m. on Fridays. We may be moving that a little bit earlier in the day for October. We'll see how that works, but we will be continuing our exploration of our senses. So the first week we talked about our sense of sight, then we talked about our sense of hearing, and today we're going to talk about our sense of smell. So this should be really fun. I was going to do taste today, but then I realized that we're going into pumpkin spice seasoning, and pumpkin spice season, and I just thought, you know, this is the time to talk about smell. So I have some fun activities for us today. I have a game that you can do with your family. I have a really cool art activity that we can do. But first, why don't we learn a little bit about smell, what it is, how it works, and why it's so important to human beings and, well, pretty much every animal on the planet. So, all right, we are going to switch over to our screen. There we go. All right, so let me just make sure that I can control my screen. So let's start with the obvious question. What is smell exactly? Well, when you breathe, okay, air enters through your nostrils, travels down your throat and into your lungs. And that's an important thing because that oxygen that we take in from our air goes through our body and allows us to break down our food to make energy. But as we breathe, we also take tiny little particles from the air and we bring those into our system too. So smell, or as it's scientifically called, olfaction, is basically the detection of all those little airborne chemicals that we're constantly breathing in. And our brain then, you know, identifies them, matches them up with our experiences to figure out what that chemical means. It's a form of, in science terms, distance chemoreception. And all that means is from a distance, from far away, I can sense chemicals. I can take in chemicals and understand what they are. This is very similar to taste, which we're going to do next week, which is contact chemoreception, which means you can understand what that chemical is because you're in contact with it. You're actually tasting it. Now, smell and taste go hand in hand, okay? In fact, a lot of what we taste is really what we smell. Our sense of smell is one of our more powerful senses. So smell helps us taste our food, and it protects us from danger because if we smell smoke, we know that there might be a fire. If we smell rotten food, we know we shouldn't eat it. So smell is really important for us, even though we may not use it quite the same way as other animals. This graphic here is kind of what's happening on a cellular level. As all these little chemicals, these molecules in the air come in and make contact with the sensors that we have in our body, in our olfactory system. Okay, so that's basically what it is. We are literally taking tiny little particles of chemicals that are in the air, being released all the time from animals, plants, and just, you know, from the dirt, from bacteria, and they're coming into our nasal cavity and we're interpreting what they mean. So let's learn a little bit more about the biology here. All right, the nose. The nose is pretty important. You can't really miss it, right? So the nose lets your air actually enter the body. It doesn't just provide like a passageway, it also warms the air that comes into our body. It moistens it and it filters it. And that's important, okay? We're able to get more oxygen from the air. And our blood vessels can actually, and capillaries can actually take in more oxygen if that air is warm and if it's moist. So that process starts when the air comes in, as you can see here, through our nose, through our nostrils, the two holes, and up into this big sinus cavity that we have. It's literally a big opening. And when you get sick, that's where all the snot kind of accumulates and it feels really uncomfortable. But that's really important because that's all that process of warming and wetting the air before it goes down into, as you can see, down into our throats. So there are two nostrils. They're separated by a wall that's called the septum. At the tip of your nose, it's made out of cartilage, like your ears, but as it goes back up into your nose, it becomes these thin pieces of bone. That vibration, by the way, is part of what helps our voices work too, because our head, our sinus cavities actually act as kind of an amplifier for all that. So if you remember our talk last week about sound, that vibration, that helps amplify the sound of our voices. All right, so we've got the basic tubes that bring the air in, but there's a lot more. Remember how I said we have to warm and wet that air? Well, that's what mucus is for. All of our, the nose, the sinus cavity, and in fact things like our mouths and our eyes are lined with what's called mucous membrane. These are literally membrane cells that make mucus. And you can see over here on this is an actual slide of the cells. And you see these little like cups? They're called goblet cells. And they literally, their job is just to make mucus. So they make mucus, they spill mucus out. But this membrane warms up the air, moistens it. Mucus is also really important because it catches anything that shouldn't get down into your throat and into your lungs. So it's supposed to be sticky. And that's why when you get sick, it gets even stickier, okay? And you make more of it because it's trying to catch any bacteria that's in there. It's trying to catch any irritants and flush it out. That's what that mucus is doing, is trying to get all the things that shouldn't be in your system out of your system. So mucus captures dust and germs and all kinds of other particles that would otherwise mess up your whole system, okay? If you are a seasonal allergy sufferer like I am, you may be experiencing quite a lot of mucus right now as trees are shedding their leaves. That makes a lot of dust, and a lot of us suffer from seasonal allergies as a result. Okay, cilia. Cilia are tiny hairs. I mentioned them last week when we talked about sound because we have tiny hairs called cilia in our cochlea, in that fluid-filled sac that helps us hear. Well, in this case, those cilia are way far back, okay, in our nasal cavity, and they move back and forth and actually push the mucus out of our sinuses. So a little different function, these cilia, than the ones in our ears. But they are literally all over our air passages, and they also help to kind of catch dust and push the mucus out as we need to. We don't want all that mucus hanging out in our nasal cavities. Like once it's done its job and trapped the gunk, we want to get it out, okay? So blow your nose. And here's a picture. Again, you can see those goblet cells I was talking about before, but these feathery little hairs, that's what the cilia look like. Okay, so they perform a really important job of keeping our system nice and clean. All right. All of this kind of brings us to sneezing, right? Sneezing. When all that gunk in there, the dust and the allergens and germs just get to be too much to handle and we can't get that snot, that mucus out, sometimes we sneeze because it all gets really irritated. And that is actually a really complicated process, really complicated process. So sneezing is also called sternutation, and basically you're trying to get the gunk out faster. You don't want to just wait for the cilia to do their job. You're trying to expel that irritant as quickly as you can. This is a good thing for your body, but those particles being sent out of your nose at 100 miles an hour and can travel quite a few feet, okay? A special part of your brain coordinates all the muscles in your eyelids, in your face, in your lungs. A lot of stuff has to happen. You have a special center in your brain that actually controls sneezing. Here's the thing I want you to know about sneezing, and that's why I included this picture. This is within the first, I think 2 or 3 seconds of someone sneezing, that, what she sneezed out has already gone 2 feet. And as you can see, it's like a big bomb of germs and irritants and gunk. This is why when we sneeze into the elbow, right? Or we wear a mask, or we sneeze into a handkerchief or tissue, because we do not want that high-speed, germ-laden mucus to go flying around, especially right now, right? So that's why you're always being told to sneeze into your elbow or to wear a mask right now, because those germs can travel really far, really fast, and they are moving at high speed, okay? All right, so that's the nose. But that's not the only part. It's the obvious part of our system for olfactory interpretation, but it's not the only part. Let's talk about the olfactory receptors that are in our body. So you got your nose, and kind of up at the top there, okay, there is a layer of special skin, epithelium, and it's the olfactory epithelium, and it has all these really special receptors. You can kind of see in this picture. They're like little nerve cells that are really, really tiny. You have about 10 million just in that tiny spot at the top of your sinus cavity. So it's like that big, and there's like 10 million of these sensors in there. It's crazy. And we have hundreds of different types. So it's not like, it's just one type. You have hundreds of specialized sensors. And part of this is genetic. This is why we all have different senses of smell. And it's why we all like different smells, because we all have a little bit different variety of receptors in our body. So research has shown that an odor can stimulate several different receptors. So over time, we start pairing different smells together, and that creates an overall smell. So you might smell apple and cinnamon and flour and butter, and that says apple pie, okay? Our brain can interpret these combinations, and we can smell about 10,000 different smells. And we are not the most receptive of animals. We have, about, I think, 3,000, 4,000 different types of receptors, and combined can smell about 10,000 different smells. I'm going to show you a chart later. Other animals can do even more. It's pretty amazing. What we do have going for us, though, is big brains, and we can understand and make sense of those smells better than most other animals. So, go humans, team human. Okay, speaking of the brain, when those receptors, and again, here's that picture. This was a little bit easier to see. There's those olfactory epithelium, that special skin that has those sensors in it. There's a tiny little area between the bone, and then it goes into this olfactory bulb. It's literally like a bulb. And that's what connects to the brain. So the smell receptors send signals. They're biochemical, electrical signals. They get sent up the nerve to the bulb, and that bulb is right underneath your brain. It's like a special part right there under your brain. And it's actually responsible for identifying what those chemicals are. So the nerves are saying, we've got these chemicals, and your brain is going, oh, when you put that and that and that and that and that together, it's apple pie. Okay. I think I've kind of got apple pie in the brain today. Might need to bake this weekend. But that's basically how it works. So we breathe in the air, we warm it up, we make it moist, we keep it clean. Our nerves have little chemical receptors that match up to each of the different things that we are smelling, and then our brain interprets what's going on. Now, that's how it works for humans, and believe it or not, it works pretty similar for other animals too. So, other mammals are very much like us. They have systems that work very similar to us. They just might have more receptors or different receptors, different size olfactory bulbs, so maybe more or less of the brain dedicated to understanding smell. Especially animals that eat meat or that might eat, that need to be able to smell their prey from a distance. They have very, very good senses of smell. Any creature that may need to be very careful about what they're eating to make sure they don't get sick will have a very good sense of smell. Whereas so like dogs, we all know, have great senses of smell, especially certain breeds. I happen to love hound dogs, so I have a foxhound. She's got a great sense of smell. But other mammals don't. Like mammals like whales that live in the water just don't need a great sense of smell. They need a better sense of taste. And they're not generally carnivores. A lot of whales they might, breed and fish, but they're always searching for live prey. They're not likely to eat a lot of rotting food. They don't have to worry about fire. So they have a less refined sense of smell. They also have that issue that their nostril, instead of two nostrils on the front of their face, they have one nostril on their head, their blowhole. And that's what they use for breathing. So not all whales have very sensitive smell. So it really comes down to what the animal needs. But here's a cute little chart, interesting little chart, that just lists the different number of olfactory receptors and the genes for that. Elephants, as it turns out, have a lot of receptors for smell. Now, I will point out there's a lot we still don't understand about smell. We don't fully understand how smells can spark memories. We don't know if it's just about the number of receptors or how big your olfactory bulb is, or there's a lot of factors, and scientists are still studying it because it unlocks a lot of secrets to how our brains work and how we interpret data and how we interpret our world. But I do think it's interesting, rabbits have more receptors than we do, guinea pigs, dogs, horses, mice, cows, and rats. Meanwhile, if you look, a lot of the other primates, we're kind of the apex of primate smell, but other creatures have developed better senses of smell. Now, that's mammals. What about fish and birds? And, mammals are, in case you don't remember from school, mammals are creatures that can nurse a baby. They make milk. They have fur. They have vertebrae. Well, there are lots of other kinds of animals out there, right? There are birds that have feathers and reptiles with scales and amphibians with skin and fish. So they all have their own different senses of smell too, and they all have different types of nasal openings that make sense for the environment they live in. So for example, some fish and amphibian, rather than just smelling with their nose, they can actually smell from the water that their skin is touching. Okay, so they might have gills. Some amphibians can actually sense, smell, and taste and things through their skin. Reptiles actually have a really special, they call it Jacobson's organ. You can see it here. They have a little organ on the top of their mouth. So like a snake will stick its tongue out. Little particles that we smell will attach to its tongue, and then it will stick that tongue against that special organ, and that's connected to its brain. So it has to actually transfer those particles from its tongue into that special organ. And that's why you see snakes always sticking out their tongues. So every creature has a little bit different way of doing it. But at the end of the day, it's all taking chemical particles from the air and letting our brain interpret what those chemicals are and what they mean to us. All right, that's our science lesson for today. I hope that you found that really interesting, because I find our sense of smell to be really amazing. It's one of our most powerful senses. And I know for me, often a sense of smell will remind me of something important or will make me happy or sad. So there's a lot of science ongoing there. Okay, let's talk about our projects for today. All righty, so I have two things that we're going to do today. The first is a matching game. And this one's pretty simple. So I got myself this fruit tea sampler. You can, if you have mint tea or lavender tea or chamomile, the idea is to get different types of tea. These are really convenient because they're in their own little bag. But you're going to open it up. You're going to take one tea bag and kind of put it in a bowl to let it mix. You're going to take the other tea bag, and you're not going to open the tea bag, but you're going to take the other tea bag, leave it in your container. And the idea here is to match. Now, if you don't have a nice little packet like this, any kind of envelope or paper bag, so one tea bag goes into your bowl for picking, the other stays with its wrapper, or is, you're going to take an envelope and you're going to say, this is blueberry, and put the blueberry tea bag in there. The goal is everybody gets to smell the known teas. So this blueberry smells really good. I'm really wanting some tea right now. I've got blackberry. So you would smell all of these, see if you can tell kind of some differences between them. I like to throw in things like mint and chamomile and lavender because they're very different smelling. You can throw in black tea. After everybody's had a chance to smell all the different teas, then you put these away and you go to the ones that are in your bowl, okay, that are kind of all mixed up now. So you mix them all up. You might want to put them in a bag and mix them up. And you have to pull one out, smell it, and see if you can match it to one of the known teas. So it's basically a matching game between your unknown tea bag and your known tea bag. And whoever guesses the most right wins. The other fun thing you can do is see how many steps back from, you put the tea bags on your table and everybody takes a step back together and they smell. And you try and figure out who can get the furthest away from the tea bag and still smell the tea bag. All right? So that's just fun ways that you can play with it. And you don't have to stick with just tea. Get out your spices. Get out dirt. Get some potting soil, right? Really challenge yourself to see what you can smell. Get some herbs and see how accurate you are. How good is your memory to match those smells? Then you could get really complicated and mix things, right? Get like apple pie smell going on. If you're a family that likes essential oils, you can put a little essential oil on a cotton ball and do the same kind of game. Very fun to do. So that's a really simple, easy way to play with smell. Now, my second activity that we have today, sorry, just switching over my trays here. All right. For this one, you are going to need a couple of things. First, you're going to need to go to your pantry and get things like, I've got curry powder, ground sage, got ground ginger, turmeric. What do I have? Mustard. Got ground cinnamon. Allspice would work. Paprika. Anything that's a really strongly scented spice. Cardamom, cumin, anything like that. The more colorful, the better. Okay? Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna make spice paintings that smell as good as they look. Okay? But we gotta make our paint. If you have white paint sitting around, you can just mix your spices right into your paint and go crazy. If you want, you can also try making your own egg temperas, which is what they used to do during the Renaissance, like think Leonardo da Vinci. They literally would take the egg white, okay, from an egg, and they would mix their spices into that and use it as paint. So you can try that too. But we're gonna make a really simple paint base, and it needs your basic all-purpose flour, cheap iodized salt, and some water. And I think I keep on touching this microphone. I'm sorry if that's I'm getting used to the lapel mic. I'm hoping it's a little bit better sound. And then I just need a bowl. I've got a measuring cup, some various items for stirring, spoons, popsicle sticks, and of course some brushes and paper to paint with. So we're gonna switch cameras, and we are gonna go ahead and make our spice paints. Oh, I also have, you can use anything, you can use cups, but I just have like part of a plastic egg carton that I'm gonna use as my palette as I make my paints. So let's do this. All right, switching cameras. Hello. Okay, so it's very easy to make your paint base. It's basically a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. So you would do 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sugar, and 1 cup of water. In this case, I'm gonna do half a cup because I don't need as much. So here we go. Half a cup of flour, and you don't have to be incredibly precise. You can play with this a little bit and kind of get the mixture you like. Now, this is not going to be the same as like store-bought tempera paint, okay? I'm just going to be really honest with you there. But it does work pretty well. And what's nice too is especially if you're working with maybe younger kids, or if you want to paint outside, you want to go outside and paint on some rocks or some trees, this is totally safe to do that with. So there we go. And now I'm going to add my water. So I like this because it's a nice natural paint that you can use pretty much anywhere. My sister and I used to love to make paints out of spices and herbs and flowers and even ground up bits of rock when we were kids. And then we would paint all over, you know, logs and slate and stuff like that. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and give that a mix. You can see it's pretty easy to do. Mix it, mix. And you want to take the time to get it pretty well mixed. I may not do that right now just because I'm looking at what time we are. Yeah, I try to keep this to about half an hour. So mixing, 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 mixing. You can, of course, do this in like a blender if you want to make it go really fast. You can make it thicker. Just add more flour if you want a thicker paint. Add more water if you want a thinner paint. It is up to you. It is completely within your control. And that's kind of the fun thing about making your own paint is that you have control over it, right? You could do whatever you think makes the most sense. So like I said, you would keep on mixing this until it was really nice and nicely completely mixed. I'm going to kind of rush it just because I'm on video and I don't want to hold you up longer than I need to. Okay, so there we go. That's pretty well mixed. And then I'm going to take my egg carton and I'm just going to use my spoon, put a little bit in each cell of my egg carton, right? So that I can make a couple of different colors. This way I don't have to waste, I don't have to make a ton of paint. Okay, so let's see, how many do I have? I'll do 6 right now. How's that? And this is a little messy, so you're gonna wanna put down something on your table, you know, on a tablecloth, or just, you know, work on a surface that you can clean up, because the flour does kind of get everywhere. You just kind of have to expect that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alrighty. And then it's very simple. I'm just gonna go ahead and pick one of my spices, like this paprika. Woo! Got it everywhere. And I'm just gonna use one of my popsicle sticks to mix until I get a color I really like. Okay, that looks pretty good, actually. I like that. Now, they're not going to dissolve, completely. And you can mix multiple spices if you really want to. You know, you can make your own custom colors. So there we go. We've got a little paprika paint. I love turmeric. So I'm going to go ahead and do some of that. It's really pretty. And this is a great way too to just, you smell those spices, and you know, like this one's, you know, paprika is very smoky. Turmeric is a little more spicy. So this is a good way too to, as you're making your paints, maybe describe what you're smelling. And maybe, you know, certain things might smell good to you, but not good to other people in your family. And this one, ooh, look at that. That's gorgeous. That dissolved so nicely. That's beautiful. Pretty, pretty. And let's just do one more for now because, ooh, cinnamon. There we go. Nice brown for cinnamon. So, you know, have fun with it. Just see what you've got in your cupboard. And you can see it doesn't take a ton. It takes maybe half a teaspoon, maybe a full teaspoon, depending on how concentrated you want that color. So you're going to make up your whole palette of your various paints like that. That's pretty, huh? And it smells so good. Cinnamon is one of my favorite smells in the whole world. And I think I might, just to show you, really quick, just do sage, because it's, you know, very different looking than, oh, wow, new sage. I didn't realize it was a new bottle. Sorry about that. Here we go. See, I said I was going to not do so many, but I enjoy this process. It's really kind of fun to see what colors you get, to smell them as you're doing it. It's just a full sensory experience, right? Because we're looking at it, we're using our sight, we're using our smell. You could, if you really wanted to, there's nothing in this that would hurt you. You could do a taste if you wanted to, see what you like. Go ahead and add some more sage. So this is just the sage. You see it's a nice green. And then I'm going to do, I think, because I've got kind of an orangey color, I'm going to do one more. I know, I keep saying no more, but I'm going to do it. Can't help myself. I'm just a big kid. I like to make a mess. Where's my got curry powder? I want mustard. Where's the mustard? Here it is. Get a little yellow from the mustard. And you can see I wasn't neat because I'm kind of trying to rush a little bit here. And I got some of my colors a little bit mixed, but I know that you'll be more careful, right? And it doesn't, I mean, it certainly doesn't ruin things. You can see that you still get nice colors regardless. So there we go. Now I got a nice happy yellow. Okay. Curry powder makes a really good one too, by the way. So you're just going to kind of play. And again, you can try different dirt. Okay. You can grind up some flowers. You can have a lot of fun with this, especially this time of year with all the leaves changing color. You know, if you get your parents' permission, you could do this in a blender with some leaves and really get it finely processed and see what you get. So, you know, get creative with it. You can have a lot of fun. But flower petals work really lovely too. Okay, so there we go. I've got my palette. I'm just going to go ahead and put all these to the side. Now, pretty easy from here on. Just grab myself a piece of paper. Whoops, knocking stuff over. Always knocking stuff over, making a mess. So I've got my paper, and I'm just going to grab a paintbrush and have a lot of fun. Okay, and you can see, like I said, these are not going to be quite as nice as, you know, a traditional paint, but it gives you a really pretty kind of rustic finish. So there's our cinnamon. And like I said, it just smells so good as you're doing this. Here is our turmeric. Try that one. I might thin these down if I were to do it again. Oh, look at that. That's gorgeous. You know, you could paint leaves with this. Maybe if you cut out paper leaves and then color them with spices and hang them, you'll have beautiful fragrant art, right? Wouldn't that be fun? Let's see, one more color. Here we go. Got some red here. Do a little bit of red. So, you know, that's kind of, there's a lot of possibilities. You could paint this onto wood. It'll stick to wood, and that would be a nice thing. You could maybe get some wooden shape from the craft store and use those. And I'm just going to do my green since I took the time to do it. There we go. So you can have a lot of fun. And if it's something that you're going to want to keep, I wouldn't recommend sealing it because that'll take away all the scent. But once the scent is kind of passed and the oils are done, then you can go ahead and seal it if you want to keep it. But there you go. So you can see you've got a wonderful variety of color, and it smells really good. So that's a fun art project, and I would love to see what you create. All right, coming back over here. So if you do create your own amazing artwork using spice paintings, I would love to see what you make. So you can share that with us. We have a safe digital wall that's moderated, and it's at padlet.com/WCLmakers, and you can post pictures of the things that you make on there. I also have on Wednesdays at 1:30 our Makers Lunch Bunch, where we get together on Zoom and just share all of our cool stuff that we're making and trying and experimenting with. So that's another great place to come and share your work. So I hope that you enjoyed learning about smell and that you will make some amazing spice paintings. In the meantime, make sure you check out our website, warrenlib.org. Our events calendar has tons coming up for October. So the library is open. Each branch is open 1 day a week right now, so you can come on in and browse and get that library experience. Otherwise, you could do curbside. We have digital resources, and of course, we're doing online programs. So we are still here with you, even with COVID, and we miss you, and we hope to be together again soon. But in the meantime, my name is Sandy Roberts. I'm the Makerspace Coordinator for the Warren County Library System, and I hope that you stay safe, stay happy, and keep learning.